I think we're ready to begin. Jill, do you want to start it off?
I would love to. Thank you, Chris. So, welcome everybody. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. As Chris just mentioned, we're so happy to have all of you join us from around the world for this unique and special partnership that we've been working on for the last several months to bring to all of you. I'm excited that we're here joined by the Worldchefs community and leadership with Chef Chris, who's going to guide you through this kickoff series. Food for Soul, as an international nonprofit, has really been advocating for social change, for a more sustainable, healthier planet in which we reduce food loss and waste, in which we care for our planet and we care for people, helping to reduce social vulnerabilities and overall the well-being of people so that everybody has access to fresh, healthy foods and we have a food secure future. In conjunction with World Chefs, we both share a mission to help young chefs, to help chefs that are just starting their career and journey in hospitality and the gastronomy field understand the important principles around a sustainable kitchen. They have been leading a wonderful training program online that's self-paced that will give all of you an opportunity to really learn and understand how to preserve our natural resources and become an advocate of sustainable gastronomy and be able to take some of these practices into your everyday working experience, whether in a kitchen, helping to take advantage of what you do on a daily basis, or helping to share this message across your colleagues with other people in your kitchen brigade and other people within your community. We're going to go through the structured learning and some of the support that we have together to offer you from now through January over the next 3 months. But I'm going to go ahead and turn it right over to Lynn and Chris to get us started. So welcome everybody. We're so happy to have you. And I'm really looking forward to everyone being able to both share their ideas, their goals, and their learnings from this program together.
Awesome. Jill, thank you very much. Before we get going on this, you said a word a couple of times there that really struck me, and that's the word community. And I think that, as I used to travel all over the world and I used to run culinary schools in many different countries. And, one of the things that I learned is that we are one big global community. We're a global community of chefs. And I think the beauty of this is that we're bringing two communities together, as you said, communities that are dedicated not only to, the art of cooking and everything, but really, really, dedicated to something bigger, something that's, societal change, climate, attention, sustainability and taking care of people. And I think that the two go hand in hand. The two are interrelated. And I'm just so thrilled that we have put this together. And I sincerely hope, Jill, that one of these days I do get to visit some of the locations and meet some of the people that you've talked about. Because again, we're all doing this together. So thank you. And, what I've been with World Chefs for, I really don't know, a long time. And, I started working on sustainability. You know what, can you go back one, Lynn, if you would, please? Thank you. And, I started really working in sustainability, 20 plus years ago. And I think that, what we do in World Chefs is very, very exciting. So I'm going to take you a little bit on a journey here, talk a little bit about what we do as World Chefs, but really get into this curriculum that you're going to be participating in. And just know that we are here to support you at every step along the way. So next slide, Lynn, please. Thank you. So this is Feed the Planet. Feed the Planet is part of World Chefs. It is an organization that I've been the chair of for quite a while. We work in partnership with the Electrolux Food Foundation and AIESEC, along with some other wonderful partners, to really bring this to the world. And it's something that started small and now has become quite large. And we've been able to affect and change, or really get involved in over, I don't know, tens of thousands of lives. And we'll talk a little bit about that, but it's a very exciting thing. So what do we do? So we have four basic things that we work on. The first is called Like a Chef. Like a Chef is basically taking serving people who are genuinely in need, people whose economic situations are tenuous at best. And what we do is we give them a short education in culinary arts with a little bit of entrepreneurism stuck in there as well, to give them the beginnings of a career in food service. Now, obviously with the pandemic, that, like everything, became a little bit of a challenge. But what we noticed is that people pivoted from working in restaurants and hotels to opening up little businesses out of their home, etc., all over the world. And it gave people who had very little opportunity an opportunity to really support themselves economically. Food Heroes Challenge is something that we work with UNICEF on this, and what we basically do is we teach about food waste to children. And as you can see in the statistic there, in 2019, we touched the lives of over 30,000 kids throughout the world. And so that is a program that then was in person, then moved online, and we're going to see where that all goes from here. But again, we have big, audacious goals to really teach people about sustainability. The Food Waste Challenge is something that we developed for professionals, industry professionals, chefs, for restaurateurs, etc., to really understand food waste and understand how to tackle it in their establishments. One of the things we learned early on is that food waste, if you understand food waste, what then happens is you effectively change every part of sustainability. And we're going to talk about that. What are those different parts? But for instance, if I buy less food, if I'm wasting less food, that means I buy less food. If I buy less food, people grow less food. And that means they use less energy, less water, etc. So by attacking food waste, we're actually able to change the whole sort of sustainability equation. So this, the Food Waste Challenge is a set of tools for chefs to understand how much food waste they're producing and how to tackle it and reduce it. And then the last part, which we're going to spend the rest of this time talking about, is sustainability education. And it's sustainability education for culinary professionals. It's an 8-part series, and we're going to talk about that now. So Lynn, if we could go ahead and, excellent, wonderful. So let's talk a little bit about just background. So why are we talking about food waste and sustainability in particular? Why are we talking about sustainability, right? When I started, and I've been in this business a long time, sustainability wasn't the word. Nobody worried about it. We knew that the garbage went somewhere. We knew that there was plenty of water for everybody, and we never thought about it. Well, we know today that that's very different. So why? So if we really think about this, the first sort of problem here is one of overconsumption. And that is, many countries, the United States included, we consume far more than we really need to. And if you couple that with a growing population, that becomes really problematic. So on the one side, we have a growing population that wants to consume more stuff. And then we have climate change. So climate change is making things less predictable, making things more volatile. So we have bigger storms, strange growing seasons. And what happens now is that the ability to prepare or to grow food, produce food, etc., becomes more and more challenging. Now you combine that with overconsumption and a growing population, and that's where the problem is acute. So what does that mean? That means that as time goes on and as the population increases, we're going to have very, very serious problems about being able to feed people, especially in a climate that's changing. So, of course, we talk about food waste, and food waste, as I mentioned earlier, is a huge problem, not only in our industry, but among our population, which is why we try to talk to people in their homes. But a third of the food that's grown is wasted. That's unbelievable. That's like getting in your automobile, getting in your car, and as you drive down the road, a third of the gas just spills onto the road. If that were the case, you'd take your car and you'd have it repaired immediately. And yet that's the way our food system functions. It's a very inefficient way of doing things. And of course, when we talk about inefficiency, we also have to talk about energy and water, because energy and water intersects every part of sustainability, and they're precious resources. And they're things that we're going to also focus on. So next slide, please. By the way, I get really excited about this stuff. So again, why us, right? I mean, why us? Why restaurants? Well, the reality is that we consume a huge amount of resources. I mean, think about what we do every day. We buy a lot of food. We use a lot of energy and a lot of water to cook that food and to clean our restaurants, etc., to keep the lights on. And we produce a lot of waste. So the fact of the matter is that we have a special responsibility to sustainability, to the wider good, to the planet. And of course, it's not just about the resources that we consume, but in many countries, the people who wear these jackets are looked up to. In many societies, dare I say, chefs have become rock stars, which I find funny always, but it's true. And so we have a special responsibility to also teach the rest of society and to be an example for them. Next slide, please. So this is what we did. A bunch of years ago, we decided that we needed to teach chefs, and we needed to teach students who were up and coming professionals. Why? Because we realized something very interesting, which is chefs want to do the right thing. Chefs want to cook in a sustainable way. They want to produce less waste, which, by the way, is more profitable. And they want to do the is that chefs are also sustainability and know which fish should I be using, or how can I reduce the food waste. So the issue is that we decided, let's make a curriculum. Let's make something that's short, that's approachable, that's globally relevant, that chefs can use as a tool to act in a more sustainable way. Now, notice what I said. I said act. That's something we believe very, very, very core to who we are as chefs. If you and others do this curriculum and you say, okay, great, I learned a few things, and nothing changes, that's a problem. Because it's all about acting. The only way we're going to change this world is to act and to change the way we are doing things. So I hope that this curriculum is something that challenges you once you have the information. Next slide, please. So when we set out on this, we had a number of objectives. And the objectives were, create a curriculum that's in depth. It's going to teach you enough, but not necessarily everything. Because the problem in sustainability is that every part of sustainability is a topic in and of itself. Energy is a topic. Water is a topic. Agriculture is a topic. And you could spend a lot of time just studying each one. So we wanted to give you enough, but not too much. We also had to make it globally relevant. And that's a little tricky because while the issues are global in nature and everything is interconnected, the issue there is that it's not always the same in every place, but we had to make it globally relevant. And we had to make it for culinary professionals. We had to make it not too long, but long enough. And we had to make it flexible and customizable. Now, that's a whole bunch of objectives that are rather challenging, but that's what we did. So next slide. The way that these classes work, we call them class sessions, is that each one sort of is a bullseye. It starts on the outside and moves inward. So on the outside, we talk about the world. What are the global issues? Because it's important to understand sort of the the global totality. Again, we are all in this as a planet, and everything is interconnected. From there, we move to sort of regional local. Now, that's a little bit more challenging for us because, how do you know what the situation of water is in Costa Rica versus Egypt versus Russia? And so that's where we rely on you a little bit to sort of fill in those details about what are the challenges that you face in your part of the world. Here in the United States, where I am, water is less of an issue. But in the western part of the United States, water is a huge issue. And then we move inward to food service. So again, it's about the worlds we live in. It's about the kitchens we run every day, because it's about acting and understanding what does it mean to address water in food service? What does it mean to think about seafood from a food service standpoint? So we do that. And then we move into the very center of the bullseye, and that's you, and that's me. And the question is always, so now that you know the issues, what are you going to do about it? What am I going to do about it? And that's the most important piece. It's about action. Next slide, please, Lynn. So here's the outline. It happens in 8 pieces, if you will, or 8 class sessions. Just running through them quickly. The first one is what we call understanding the big picture. And that's, remember earlier I talked about, population and overconsumption and climate control or climate change. It's that. It's really understanding how we got here today. And again, for those of you who are maybe as old as I am, you can think about the day when sustainability didn't exist. It did, but we just didn't know it. So that's number one, understanding the big picture, because you have to understand how we got here. And then we start to dig into each of the different pieces. So agriculture, from the dirt, what grows out of the ground, agriculture, animals, as food. So what are we raising? Dairy, eggs, etc. Part 4 is seafood, everything that comes out of water. And that will include a little bit about algae and sea plants or seaweed. Then we get into part 5 is energy. Part 6 is water. And then we get into waste management. What happens with food waste or recycling? And again, this is, maybe probably of all of them, the least sexy of all of them, but really important. And then lastly, we finish with the one that's maybe a little bit odd if you're just looking through these and you say, nutrition, really? Nutrition is the one that we added later. And it's a really interesting thing because what we have learned is that what is good for the planet tends to be good for me. And so if we start to think about nutrition from a sustainability standpoint, it's really interesting how the two worlds overlap. And traditionally in culinary education, nutrition was a topic that too often was sort of over there. You'd study it, and then, when I was growing up, you go back to, cream and butter in the kitchen. But the reality is that today we know that nutrition and sustainability are actually one and the same. So those are the 8 pieces. But one of the things I just want to stress, and this will come up throughout the entire course, is that while we're looking at these in pieces, everything is actually intertwined. Everything is connected. So, if we talk about agriculture, what grows from the ground, what comes from the dirt, you really can't talk about agriculture without talking about energy and about water and about food waste and about nutrition. And all of a sudden, everything is connected. But for the sake of studying this, we had to cut it up into little pieces. But just please remember that by affecting one, you will affect the others as well, always. Next, please. So what is this curriculum? What is the curriculum all about? So number one, again, globally relevant topics, the ones that we just looked at. Everything we're going to talk about in this presentation has relevance everywhere in the world. Even if it doesn't seem like it, we now as a planet are interconnected. So yes, very globally relevant topics. User-friendly resources. Now, this is a little bit less about the course you're doing, and I do have to specify that there are actually two of these programs. The one was designed for culinary schools, and it's really in depth, and it's much longer. Not so ideal for people like you and me who also have full-time jobs and trying to balance everything else. So we created a shorter version, which is the one that you're going to be doing. It's not, you don't have quizzes and all kinds of stuff like that. So you do have some quizzes, but it's not as much as we would do for the other one. So customizable lessons. Again, we started with this as being much, much longer, and then we shrank it down in size, and we shrank it down to be customizable to people like you and people like me. And of course, there's certification that goes with this, because we want to recognize the people who complete this. And so you can get a badge and maybe then also become a trainer, which would be really, really cool. But the point here is that if you take the time to do this, we want to recognize that. We also strongly encourage you then to share everything you've learned, because this is the point. The point is, the only way we change this world is by a lot of people knowing what to do and then doing it. That's the only way it works. It doesn't work if there's 10 of us or 20 of us or 200 of us. We need tens of thousands of professionals across the world saying we have to do things differently. And now I am armed with the knowledge to do things differently. Next slide, please. So where are we at to date? I mentioned earlier that we have huge goals. We have very, very big goals. And where are we today? We have right now trained over 4,000 people, and that number is growing daily. And if you notice down there on the bottom left, we have over 70 approved trainers. These are people who are now taking what we've done, taking the message and teaching it to people all over the world, to their different spheres of influence. You can read the quote there yourself. Well, maybe I'll read it real quick. It's for translation purposes. This is by a wonderful chef, Mark Cerise, who's vice president of global culinary at Griffith Foods, a guy who's just so committed to sustainability. And he says, as chefs who fundamentally depend on the earth for inspiration and creativity, we are ethically bound to preserve those gifts through knowledge, understanding, and stewardship. The sustainability course from Worldchefs is the first step for our global guild in moving forward to make a difference. We now have another opportunity to scale positive impact by working together globally. Do you see what he says? We start with education, then we act, and we don't act alone, but we act as a community. And that's how we change the world. Next, please. So this is just a quick list of some of the schools who are teaching the larger, longer sustainability course throughout the world. We're very, very proud of the fact that there are schools doing this, but we're also proud of the fact if you look at, these are schools all over the world. And by the way, for all of you in whatever part of the world you live in, you work in, if you know of culinary schools, please encourage them to work with us on this. And by the way, it's completely free. There's no charge to the school whatsoever. All we want is for more people to know this, to act on it, and to change the world. Next slide, please. So this is where we are. So this is you now. This is your time to jump in and get involved and to begin the courses, which are all online. Now, I will say that we are going to have a midterm halfway through sort of check-in time. I think that's sometime in December. Not sure if we have the date yet. But that's a time when we can come back together, and I'll be here to maybe offer some encouragement, but also to field your questions. And if you're confused or whatever, and I have to say, it's kind of funny because I'm taking classes right now. Actually, I'm taking a food science class. So I know how it is when you're super busy and all of a sudden you're like, oh, wow, I couldn't do anything this week. We understand. I understand. Do your best. Do your best to stay on track. These were meant to be short and sweet. So, do part of it. And if you're in trouble, say stop, etc., and pick it up when you can. That's the whole point of this. But we are very, very excited. And then, of course, we'll connect with you before the very end of the class to answer any more questions you have. And then, of course, lastly, if at any point during this you're confused, something doesn't make sense, you have an idea you want to share with us, we're here. We're a community, and we're putting our two communities together. So we're here to offer support.
Thank you so much, Chris. It's a wonderful presentation and introduction. So I wanted to kind of recap on some of the really important things that you mentioned, and then also take us through the sort of next steps for everybody who signed up. I think a big takeaway for everybody, as you heard Chef Chris talking throughout the presentation, the goal for us together is really to move from awareness to action, and to do that together as a collective global community across a wide variety of different food service institutions. And I think that's really important. As a community of chefs, myself included, we work in so many different spaces and places. There are young cooks coming up in their culinary pathway. It may be traditional in an institutional setting. It may be through a community culinary program like are hosted in many of the Refitorio projects around the world. There are chefs working in research and development for food manufacturers on farms. There are chefs that are working in traditional kitchens and fast, quick serve in fine dining. And collectively, everyone has something to share. They all have their unique experience based on where they work, based on where they live, and their own view and experience of how food plays a role in a culture that we are building and sharing around zero waste. And so I think I want everyone to know that's joined us here, those of you that will listen to this after and have signed up for the training, that this program has been designed for everyone, and for everyone to do, as Chris mentioned, this in a self-pace. So the curriculum will be available online. We will be sharing a specific Google Drive that hosts all of the lessons 1 through 8 that Chris reviewed earlier. And all along the way, over the next 3 months, from November to the sort of graduation period that we have by mid-January, each of us, I hope, will be learning at our own pace, but sharing and asking questions. As Chris mentioned, we're here to help facilitate and to do our best not only to answer connections, but to connect you with one another, to learn from one another. The self-pace is really that. It's self-pace. So don't feel the pressure to move through the entire program within the first 2 weeks or the first month. We really want you to dive deep into each one. And to support that a little further, Food for Soul and Worldchefs will also be bringing you additional supportive material, different types of solutions that come from different chefs that are really well experienced in a few of those modules, as well as other industry leaders and others that are actually helping to contribute to the overall global space of sustainability. So one of the things that I also wanted to reference, there are some questions about training, which is great. So during your presentation, Chris, we had a couple of people asking about becoming trainers, and which is awesome. So as many of you know, some of you, this is a very first step in learning a little bit more about how we can reduce the presence of waste, both from a supply chain once we bring it into the facilities, and then the production and service of our food. there is a really important part that once you have this knowledge, as Chris mentioned, it's about taking action in your own unique ways. And so once you finish this first program, the first 8 modules, once you're completed and you get your certification, there is going to be the option to stay on to take the train the trainer course. All of this is free to you. We feel extremely fortunate to be able to provide this because of the partnership with Worldchefs. And so if you have interest, know and understand that once you complete this, absolutely you can become a trainer. Those of you that are on the call, especially those of our operational partners managing Refitorios around the world, we would love to have you become trainers and host this inside the Refitorios. Of course, once it's safe, but it's an online program right now. And so I would definitely encourage each of you to not only take this, but consider this an opportunity for your culinary apprentices and those that you are helping to educate and train in your local community. If we can create more hubs of exchange, more people moving from awareness to action, I think all of us will see the next 10 years and definitely, hopefully, achieve some of the major agenda goals for 2030 in relationship to the UN Sustainable Development Goals. So those are a couple notes that I wanted to reference. So again, just for everybody on this call and listening afterwards, we have made all of the sessions available in multiple languages. So we are happy to share this in English as a predominant first language. And then we will have videos, transcriptions, and supporting materials available in Italian, French, Portuguese, Spanish, and German. And so each of those materials and lessons will be shared through Worldchefs and a shared Google Drive. You can take each of those courses at your own pace. Anytime you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to us at Food for Soul or at Worldchefs. You have 2 contacts there below. And then, as Chris mentioned, in order to help facilitate to keep us all on track, in December we'll be scheduling a midterm review as a touch point, and then planning for mid-January to have a graduation and celebration for all of those that have been participating. So I'd like to stop there, make sure that we leave a few moments for any questions and answers, and any sharing or exchange. You're welcome to go ahead and raise your hand or continue to put any of your questions in the chat. I'll wait a couple minutes. And while we're doing that, I just want a big thank you, of course, to Worldchefs, Chris, for taking us through this kickoff series, and as well to all the interpreters that we have online who have been making sure to facilitate this training in multiple languages today for you.
Jill, thank you for those comments. That's really great. And yes, we certainly hope that we have as many trainers as possible. We love trainers because that's how we really spread the message. As we say, that's the geometric growth that happens that way. And to your point, we are online now. The pandemic, of course, has changed a lot of that, and in some ways, very positively. To be able to do this online. But we also know that, it's great to do it in person as well, and that's really where the trainers come in. So, all over the world, you can be those. I think you used the word hubs. The hub of training, which is really important. So.
Well, I'm excited that we currently at Food for Soul, in partnership with nonprofits around the world, we've launched 13 different Refitorios, and we have more to come. And every one of them are participating in this. And we had an overwhelming response once we opened up the link to chefs around the world that could share. Immediately people responded. So I think, Chris, as you're saying, that's one of the things that the pandemic has brought us all a little bit closer as a global community. And at the same time, we've learned just how essential these kinds of trainings have become. And it's at the top of everyone's mind. Just starting your career path, no matter what your age, I think when people think about cooking, they think about sustainability first and foremost. And nutrition is one of those elements. It used to be at the top, of course, around hunger, but it's now embedded and it's very interconnected to all of the different lessons that you've put together. So I think it's going to be very comprehensive for people to experience. And I'm excited to learn from everybody, to learn how they are absorbing this, what types of things we can add on to it, what kind of feedback can help to grow the program.
That's
Just
your
a quick
question,
note.
Jill.
Yeah, there was a quick question. Are there any plans for a Refitorio in Chicago? Yes, we have a partnership there, and it's great because we have a couple Chicagoans on the call, including Chris. So we're looking for space right now. If you know of anybody who has space, please connect us at Food for Soul. But we do have a plan to bring a project there.
One last comment is that I really think that as you go through this, we always want feedback, good or bad. We always want feedback. We're actually in the middle of a big revision right now, but also, we also really want to know, how does it change what you do? And any sort of success stories, or I learned this and now we're doing this differently. That's the kind of stuff we really love to publish, because that's why we're doing it. So anyways, I'm gonna jump off in probably a minute because I have to go to work. So
Thank you so much, Chris. I think Lynn and I can stay on just a couple more minutes to see if
awesome.
we can facilitate any questions. Thank you again for your stewardship and your leadership, Chris, as a master chef, and your service and work and helping to provide these training programs at no cost for people is instrumental. So thank you again. We really appreciate it.
Well, and thank you to you, but and everybody on this call, and everybody who will be listening to the recordings. We're a community, so we're all in this together. So it's frankly, for me, it's a real honor to talk to people in the same profession. So thank you all very much, and I look forward to talking to you in December. Thank you.
Thanks, Chris. Lynn, any housekeeping notes or format that I may have missed?
No, absolutely not. Thank you so much. So just to say hi to everyone, because I've been behind the screen and maybe you were wondering what is this, who's this girl that just pops up. So I'm Linto, project and event manager at Worldchefs, and I work very closely with Chris for Feed the Planet project. And it's an absolute pleasure that we finally get to launch this sustainability education training with Food for Soul. So thank you so much, Jill. You sum up beautifully at the end about why and how we are doing this together. And yeah, just to reinforce one more time, we are here to answer any question that you might have when you are taking the course. It's online lessons, it's gonna be at your own time, but you're not alone in taking this. So there are two contacts. One is from Food for Soul and one is from me. You have the direct line to reach out to me on any questions regarding the program and what comes after. So very much looking forward to receive the emails from you, or even if you want just to share like a feedback, like there's this part that I find not relevant, or I think this is wrong in the curriculum, I want to make an edit to it. That's great. We're very happy to receive such information, because just to give you a little update, so now it's just video and separate Google form that we manage the lessons, but we are planning to turn it to an e-learning course where you actually have the potentials to have everything at one place or via an application. So we are very much collecting feedback from everybody who's taking the online course. So if you have any ideas on how we can improve and make sure that you have the best learning experience possible, please feel free to reach out.
Thank you, Lynn. She has been behind the scenes, as she had mentioned, but in an instrumental part of bringing the curriculum forward for all of us today on this kickoff session. And as Lynn had mentioned, we are doing our best and learning online always about accessibility. So just to end here, a couple quick notes for all of you. You've signed up with us, and if you have not been able to participate in the kickoff and you're listening to this afterwards, please not to worry. We have you signed up, and you will be provided all of the materials as Lynn referenced, so that you can watch the videos, you can read the follow-up material, and any of the supporting quizzes to go along and facilitate your education experience. One important part of this is understanding that we have not shared your data with anybody. So as we open up the conversation, we will be asking each of you if you want to participate in a shared exchange. There is no requirement to do so. We respect everybody's privacy, but we also know how much we can learn and grow from one another. So in addition to these materials and being able to take this program at your self-pace, we encourage you to share with one another. So please look for that invite as well. And if you're comfortable, we'd love to see how you can make connections around the world. As Lynn mentioned, this is a growing experience for all of us. The curriculum and education in general is something that's consistently evolving to be present and responsive to the needs of today. And as we learn and grow from each of you and those different trainers that will be supporting you, we want to make sure that's reflected in the material guide. So know that that your ideas are welcome, as Lynn mentioned. And I think, let's see, we have one more question. Yes, so just again, once we close this session out, you will receive a separate invitation and link to all of the shared materials, so that way you're able to access them online. For those of you that are working with teams, I know there are some Refitorios that are going to be doing the program together with several of the individuals on their culinary teams or in their culinary training programs. So please feel free to share these materials. If you have an issue accessing any of the materials, as Lynn mentioned, please email us, either Lynn or us at Food for Soul, and we'll make sure to correct that. But again, this is a kickoff session today to open up the session, to give you an overview, to hear from Chef Chris about the importance of each of the modules. And then second to that, we will be sending out a link to share all the materials for you. Any questions? We look forward to hearing from you by email. And once again, thank you all for your time, morning, afternoon, or evening, wherever you are around the world. We're excited to have this global community taking action. Wish you a wonderful day. Lynn, thanks again. And we'll talk with everyone soon as we start the program.
Thank you so much, and have a great day, everybody.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.